My name is Shen Yu, but inside the archive, they call me the Raven Archivist. I collect the cases that official reports could never fully explain. Missing people, forgotten villages, closed roads, old photographs, witness statements, names that appear where they should not exist. Most people call them ghost stories. I call them files. And tonight, I am opening one of them for you. Welcome to the Raven Files. This file began as a suspicious death in a mountain village. But the deeper the investigators looked, the less it resembled a family tragedy. At the center of the case was a child, a dead woman accused of stealing fortune, a ritual ledger, and a debt that had been waiting more than 40 years to return. This is the Borrowed Fortune file.
My name is Zhang Xinglan. What I am about to tell you happened when I was 12 years old. Most of it remains exactly as I remember it. The rest, I reconstructed years later from police files, witness statements, my grandmother's journal, and a ritual ledger recovered during the investigation. Back then, everyone in the village called me Xiao Xingxing, Little Star. They also called my grandmother something else, a fortune borrower. They said there were people who could take luck from one person and move it into another life. Whenever someone in the village got sick, lost money, or suffered a bad harvest, people looked toward the small house at the foot of the mountain where my grandmother and I lived. They said she had taken their fortune. They said that was why my father became rich in the city. I never believed them. If my grandmother could steal luck, why did she wear the same cotton coat until it had been patched 7 times? Why did she wait until the market was closing to buy wilted vegetables at half price? Why did she hide the best piece of meat under my rice? Then tell me she had never liked meat in the first place. Her name was Luo Shuying. She was not my father's biological mother. I did not learn that until after she died. But for the first 12 years of my life, she was the only person who stayed awake beside me when I had a fever. She carried me 3 miles down a mountain road to school. She waited in the rain when class ran late. And whenever children said my parents did not want me, she always said the same thing. Even if the whole world has no place for you, Xing Xing, I do. A week before the Lunar New Year, my father called. I heard only part of the conversation. He asked whether grandmother still had the comb from that year. She did not answer for a long time. Then she said, very quietly, "Some debts cannot be delayed forever." After that call, she began preparing the house as if she knew exactly when a journey would begin. 3 days later, she took me to the county market. She bought me 3 new outfits, a pair of padded shoes, and 2 exam preparation books. Then she stood for a long time in front of a dark blue floral coat. It was not expensive, but she still asked the price 3 times. In the end, she bought it. On the way home, she bought me a stick of candied hawthorn. As we crossed the old stone bridge, she said, "Your parents are coming home this year. Your brother and his wife too." I pushed the largest piece of hawthorn toward her mouth. "Are you happy?" She smiled, but the corners of her eyes turned red. "Of course. They have not come back in years. The village children keep saying my Xingxing has no family. This time, they will see that you do." I did not tell her that I did not miss them. My father was Zhang Guowei. My mother was Sun Neiqin. My older brother was Zhang Qiang. He was nearly 10 years older than me. My parents had wanted another son. A clinic in the county told them the baby was probably male, so they kept the pregnancy. Then I was born a girl. Before I was 1 month old, they left me with grandmother and moved to the city. They opened a transportation company. Years later, they became wealthy. In my memory, my father was a cold voice on the telephone. My mother was expensive perfume and a coat I was never allowed to touch. My brother was the boy who once tore a workbook from my hands and laughed that studying was wasted on girls. Grandmother spent the final days before New Year cleaning the house. She swept the courtyard, pasted red paper around the doors, prepared meat, washed blankets, and gave the best bedroom to Zhang Chang and his wife. Hiu Huan, whenever I tried to help, she placed food in my hand and pushed me back toward my books. "You study," she said. "One day, you will leave this mountain. You cannot live as hard a life as I did." On the 28th day of the lunar month, a black luxury car stopped outside our gate. My father and mother wore expensive coats. Zhang Qiang wore a shining watch. He Huan carried a handbag that, I later learned, cost more than our entire house. Grandmother hurried forward to help with the luggage. He Huan stepped away. "Do not touch it. Could you afford to replace it if you got it dirty?" Grandmother froze. He Huan looked around the courtyard and gave a small, contemptuous laugh. "I heard you are a fortune borrower. Zhang Chang and I have had terrible luck lately. Maybe you have been draining the younger generation." No one defended Grandmother. My father only said, "Go inside. We have things to discuss." At that moment, a chill ran down my back. I do not know whether it came from his voice or from the bronze wind chime under the roof. There was no wind, but it moved anyway. Grandmother had spent 3 days preparing dinner. No one ate much. She tried to make conversation. "Wanzi, how has work been?" He Huan put her bowl down hard. "Bad. Zhang Chang made a failed investment. We owe money, and I lost a pregnancy." She paused. "Qiu Yaozong said that if the ritual was completed before New Year's Eve, my next child would survive and become the first person to receive the Zhang family's returning fortune." I had never heard that name before. "Qiu Yaozong," He Huan continued. "People say when an old person lives too long, she can hold the luck of the younger generation. Then the young began losing everything." Zhang Chang placed his phone face down on the table. For 1 second, I saw the small recording light still on. Then he said, "Stop pretending, Grandma. Years ago, Father's business collapsed. You locked yourself in a room for 3 days. When you came out, your hair had turned white. After that, his company recovered. What was that, if not borrowed fortune?" Grandmother folded her hands. "I did not steal anyone's fortune. My father watched her, years later. I learned that at first, he had only planned to force her to act as his guarantor one more time. When she refused over the phone, Qiu Yaozong offered him another method, a forced transfer. At the dinner table, my father still hesitated. Only for a second. Then He Huan mentioned the debt, and the hesitation vanished. "You are almost 70, he said. "If you truly care about this family, you should return what belongs to your descendants." I stood up. "You came here to make her die?" My father slapped me. The sound cracked through the room. Grandmother immediately pulled me behind her. For the first time in my life, I saw her look at my father without warmth. "Zhang Guowei," she said, "you may blame me, but you will not touch Xing Xing." He gave a dry laugh. "You have spoiled her." Dinner ended in silence. That night, Grandmother held me in the small bed we shared. I heard her crying. When I turned, she smiled. "I am all right. Can we make them leave after New Year? You must go to school in the city." "I will not." "You must." Her voice had never sounded that firm. "Some roads open only once. Xing Xing. If I am not here, you still have to keep walking." I held her tightly. "You will always be here." She did not answer. The next morning, her Huan woke before sunrise and made porridge. That alone was enough to make me suspicious. She had never entered our kitchen before. When I passed the doorway, I smelled something sharp. Not herbs, not smoke. Grandmother lifted the bowl and frowned before it reached her lips. "What is in this?" He Chuan's face changed. Zhang Chang grabbed Grandmother from behind. Everything happened at once. I ran toward them. My father caught me. My mother locked the courtyard gate. He Chuan tried to force the porridge into Grandmother's mouth. Most of it spilled down her coat and onto the floor, but some went in. Grandmother began coughing. I bit my father's hand and reached her. "Call a doctor." No one moved. My father dragged both of us into the back room and locked the door. "She is only sick," he said. "She will recover." But I knew they were waiting for her to die. In school, I had learned that some agricultural chemicals had a sharp smell and could burn the throat and stomach. I did not know exactly what He Wan had used, but I knew it was not an accident. There was no telephone in the room. The window had been nailed shut from outside. I beat on the door until my voice was gone. No one came. During the first night, Grandmother was still conscious. She was in pain, but she tried not to let me hear it. Near dawn, her breathing became shallow. She called me closer. "Xing Xing, take the comb from my coat." It was dark brown, not wood, not jade, not bone. When I touched it, it felt warm, as if it had been lying beside a stove. Grandmother loosened my hair. "One stroke for peace." She pulled the comb gently through my hair. "2 strokes for a clear heart." On the 3rd stroke, her hand began to shake. "3 strokes, and all the blessing I have left for Xing Xing's road ahead." I caught her wrist. "I do not want it. I only want you." She pushed the comb inside my coat. "Hide it." "What is it?" "Not a treasure for becoming rich." Her breath caught. "It remembers the good a person has done. Remember this. Blessing cannot be stolen. Fortune cannot be borrowed without repayment." Then she told me to place my ear against her chest. I listened as her heartbeat weakened before it stopped. She whispered one final warning. "Do not trust the first person who calls himself a master." She died just after sunrise. At noon, my father opened the door. He did not ask how long I had been alone with her body. He told my mother to pull me away while men brought in a coffin. That afternoon, a Taoist arrived. His name was Qiu Yaozong. My father and Zheng Cheng clearly knew him already. Qiu walked around the coffin 3 times and announced that Grandmother had been a fortune borrower, destroyed by backlash. He said that if her senses were not sealed, her spirit would return and take lives. He ordered them to sew shut her eyes, ears, nose, and mouth with red thread. My mother asked, "Will our fortune return?" Qiu answered, "The tighter the debt are sealed, the easier the debt is transferred to the person who paid for the ritual." That was when I understood. This was not protection. It was a transaction. My father had paid Qiu Yaozong to turn Grandmother's death into prosperity for the Zhang family. After explaining the ritual, Qiu said he had to return to retrieve the ritual tools for the burial ceremony. He promised to come back before the coffin left the courtyard the next morning. When I tried to stop them, my father locked me in the storage room. Through a narrow crack in the wall, I saw them prepare the needle and thread. I did not keep watching. I sat in darkness and held the warm comb. Then I began to think, who had first told my family that Grandmother was a fortune borrower? Why did Qiu Yaozong know about the comb? Why had my father called a week earlier and asked whether she still had it? Why had Grandmother prepared my clothes, my school books, and my future before they arrived? She had known they were coming. Perhaps she had even known what they wanted. There was a small ventilation opening near the floor. I used a rusted iron strip to pry away the rotten wood. It took almost 2 hours. By then, the house was quiet. I crawled through and carried a pair of scissors into the morning hall. The moment I crossed the threshold, I walked into someone. He wore a dark blue-green robe beneath a black outer cloak. His hair was tied low. His face looked young. His eyes did not. He raised one finger to his lips. Outside, my father heard the sound and approached with a flashlight. The stranger pulled me close to the coffin. The beam passed across us 3 times. My father saw nothing. After he left, I whispered, "Who are you, Huai Qingmu? Human or ghost? That is less important than what you intend to do. I am taking out the thread. Do you know what may happen? No. And you will still do it. She did nothing wrong. I will not let them bury her like a criminal. He sighed and opened the coffin. I removed the thread one piece at a time. I wiped grandmother's face. I combed her hair. On the dressing table beside the coffin, I found the ordinary wooden comb she had used every day. I placed it inside her coat. The real comb remained hidden against my chest. Huai Qingmu watched me. Are you not afraid she will sit up? I am more afraid of the living. He said nothing. When I removed the last thread, a long howl came from the mountain, then another, and another. Calls rose from every direction in the forest. The beasts are mourning. Huai Qingmu said, he told me that he understood the part of the matter connected to spirits, mountain creatures, and Fupo, the money, contracts, and human conspiracy would be mine to uncover. Luo Shuying was not a fortune borrower. She was a Fupo, in old language, a blessing woman, a person capable of gathering merit and softening misfortune around her. The blessing of a Fupo did not make people kings or millionaires. It made ordinary life gentler. Illness came less often, harvests failed less completely, wild animals avoided homes, large disasters became smaller ones. But that blessing could also be used as a guarantee for another person. It could not turn wrong into right. It could not erase consequences. It could only delay payment or reduce the first impact. The Fupo had to agree willingly, and every time she gave that protection, she lost health and years of her own life. If the protected person continued doing harm, the debt would grow faster than the blessing could contain it. Years earlier, my father's company had nearly collapsed because of dishonest investments. Families had lost money because of contracts he had signed. When the consequences came for him, grandmother used her own merit to protect the son she had raised. That was the night her hair turned white. She had not stolen fortune for him, she had paid a debt he created. Why did she never tell him, I asked? Because anyone who learns he survived through another person's merit must repay it through good actions. Huai Qingmu said, Shang Guowei did not want to repay anything. He chose to believe your grandmother's sacrifice belonged to him. Zhou Yaozong had watched grandmother for years. The comb did not contain money or power. It held traces of the merit she had gathered and the blessings she freely chose to leave behind. If stolen through ritual, that merit would turn into what Qiu's system called fortune debt. The consequence created whenever one person's disaster was forced onto someone else. The thief might become lucky for a short time, but every disaster pushed away would eventually return at once. What does Qiu want with it? To feed something that should not exist. Huai looked toward the courtyard. And your father wants it because he has spent his whole life escaping consequences. I asked why he was helping me. He said grandmother had once saved his life. Before leaving, he told me not to give the comb to anyone. Not even him. At dawn, I tried to reach the village store and call the police. Before I opened the gate, I heard Zhang Qiang shouting that He Wan was pregnant. No one asked how she knew. No one asked why she had said the night before that she had ended a pregnancy. My father immediately took it as proof that grandmother's death had restored the family's fortune. I looked at He Wan. Her stomach was still flat. But she kept touching it. She kept saying she was hungry. And when no one else was watching, she stared toward the morning hall and smiled, as if someone inside were calling her. I slipped out and ran to Wang Diyu's store. I flat the short communication. The moment I told the police someone had poisoned my grandmother, Wang tore the receiver from my hand. He apologized to the operator and said I had been watching too many crime shows. Then he dragged me home. On the way, I asked why he was helping my father. He would not look at me. Your father said your grandmother suffered ritual backlash. If this spreads, the whole village could be harmed. Do you believe that? He said nothing. A red envelope protruded from his coat pocket. It carried the stamp of my father's company. My father had not relied on superstition alone. He had paid the people whose voices mattered. By the time we returned, villagers had gathered in our courtyard. They helped prepare the burial. They kept me away from the coffin, but when they tried to lift it, it would not move. 4 men tried, then 8. The coffin remained fixed to the ground. 3 knocks came from inside. The courtyard fell silent. My father opened the lid and saw that the thread had been removed. Qiu Yaozong had not returned yet, so my father took the needle himself. Each time he moved it toward grandmother's face, thunder sounded. The sky was clear. After the 3rd crack of thunder, a deer appeared outside the gate. It lowered its head toward the coffin. Then came a red fox, wolves, birds, mountain snakes, and finally, a large black bear. They did not attack. They surrounded the mourning hall and prevented anyone from touching the coffin. An old woman in the crowd whispered, "If Luo Shuying were evil, why would the beasts come to mourn him?" The story my father had sold the village began to fracture. Then Zhang Cheng screamed from inside the house. He Huan had eaten everything on the table and was still hungry. She crawled into the pig enclosure for feed. Then she drank from the same container that held the poisoned porridge. When Zhang Cheng pulled her away, she bit him. There was no monstrous feast, as some people later claimed. Only chaos, a deep wound across Zhang Cheng's face. He Huan convulsing as the poison she had prepared began affecting her own body, and the leftover porridge still inside the container. Evidence my father had failed to destroy. My mother wanted to call an ambulance. My father refused. He feared the hospital would identify the poison and connect it to grandmother's death. He Huan was locked inside the storage room. Zhang Cheng was carried into the house. Half an hour later, Qiu Yaozong returned. He brought a long bamboo basket and a gourd that released a sharp smell. When he opened it, the animals around the courtyard backed away. He had prepared for them. Qiu did not ask how grandmother died. His first question was, did she leave a comb? My father looked at me. They searched my clothes. They found nothing. The real comb was hidden beneath a loose stone behind the mourning hall. Qiu announced a different rite. He called it the debt transfer rite. He drew a circle around the coffin. Then he removed a 2-headed snake from the basket. It was not as large as villagers later claimed, but it was real. One head was covered by a pale membrane. The other had a dark red pupil. Small talismans had been fastened around its neck. Huai Qingmu had been right. Qiu was raising something that should not exist. He intended to feed it the merit in grandmother's comb and force it through one final transformation. I said, "The comb is on her body." The courtyard went silent. Qiu and my father both turned toward the coffin. I knew they would compete for it. Greed makes people ignore what they would otherwise notice. My father pushed my mother into the ritual circle first. Qiu entered after her. When they bent over the coffin, Qiu cut my mother's arm with a needle. He wanted to test whether the snake still obeyed blood. The snake lunged. At that exact moment, a locust branch snapped down from outside the courtyard and erased part of the ritual line. The snake froze. Wang Deo rushed forward and dragged my mother out. She was bitten in the arm, but not in a major artery. The venom left her unconscious. Qiu searched grandmother's coat and found the ordinary wooden comb. For 1 second, he laughed. Then he realized it was false. He turned toward me. Before he could move, Huan broke through the weakened storage room door and stumbled into him. Qiu fell near the snake. A stone cut his face. The snake smelled blood. Qiu tried to command it, but the paper seals around its neck had come loose in the mud and spilled porridge. It turned on him. When Qiu lost consciousness, the remaining talismans burned into ash. The snake moved toward the forest, but the animals blocked its path. Huai Qingmu appeared behind the crowd. He closed one hand. the snake's body collapsed into a stream of black smoke. When the smoke cleared, only 2 venomous fangs and a small bronze ring remained on the ground. Police cataloged all 3 objects as unidentified ritual evidence. A wildlife laboratory could not match the fangs to any documented species from the region. The bronze ring carried the same seal marks found in Qiu Yaozong's ritual ledger. No one could explain where the rest of the animal had gone. Zhou still tried to crawl toward his basket. Inside it, I found records, chemical receipts, photographs of grandmother taken over several years, and a list of families who had paid Qiu for fortune transfer rituals. Zhang Guowei's name was at the bottom. Wang Deyu restrained my father. "Why does this man have transfer records for your family?" My father shouted that everything had been done for us, for the family. That was the moment the final lie collapsed. The comb beneath my coat suddenly became hot. I understood something then. If I spoke my father's name and opened the debt he had delayed, everything waiting for him could fall at once. For one moment, I wanted it. I wanted every consequence to reach him before he could escape again. Then I remembered grandmother's hand moving through my hair. She had given me blessings so I could live, not so I could become another Qiu Yaozong. I lowered the comb. I handed the ledger to Wang Deyo. "Call the police." Wang ran back to his store. This time, he called both the police and an ambulance. He gave the operator the exact address. He named Zhang Guowei. He said one woman had been poisoned and killed, several people were injured, and ritual evidence remained at the scene. He also asked the operator to preserve the recording so no one could force him to change his statement later. My mother, Zhang Qiang, He Wan, and Qiu Yaozong were taken toward the hospital. Qiu died on the way from venom exposure. The autopsy confirmed severe envenomation, but the toxicology report could not match the venom to any known local species. Police arrived that afternoon. By sunset, the courtyard no longer looked like a place of mourning. It looked like a crime scene. Red thread, chemical containers, ritual seals, and blood-marked stones were photographed one by one. Investigators found the poisoned porridge, the chemical container, the cut telephone wire, Qiu's ledgers, and the recording on Zhang Chang's phone. He had recorded conversations with my father because he planned to blame him if the ritual failed. He Wan survived after several days in intensive care, but lost the pregnancy. Hospital records showed she had already been pregnant before returning to the village. Messages on her phone revealed that Qiu had promised the child would become the first recipient of the family's restored fortune if the ritual was completed before New Year's Eve. She had lied about ending the pregnancy to provoke grandmother and pressure the family into acting. Zhang Qiang was charged as an accomplice in the poisoning and unlawful confinement. My mother survived, but her arm remained damaged. She did not become a good person overnight. At first, she tried to minimize her role. Only after learning that my father had planned to leave her for another woman and that he had pushed her into the snake circle because she alone knew the company's account passwords, did she understand that she had also been considered expendable. Then she surrendered her phone, passwords, messages, and financial records. My father was arrested in our courtyard. Before he entered the police car, he looked at me. "Xing, I'm your father." I said, "She was your mother for more than 40 years. He had no answer. I thought it was over. That night, only grandmother's coffin and I remained in the courtyard. Huai Qingmu appeared on the roof. "Human law has handled the human part," he said. "The rest is not finished." In a lining of Qiu's bamboo basket, I had found a second ledger. Most of it was written in old symbols. Huai helped me read the sections connected to Fupo and mountain spirits. The names, money, dates, and relationships between cases. I matched myself against the police records. The ledger confirmed the rules. Fortune could not be created. To help one person escape disaster, someone else had to carry the consequence. To make one family rise unnaturally fast, another life Home or opportunity had to be pushed downward. Cho Yaozong did not create luck. He moved debt. For years, my father had used grandmother's merit to postpone the consequences of his choices. Every inspection he escaped, every fraudulent contract that went unpunished, every accident that became a near miss. Each time, grandmother weakened, but she never agreed to the final transfer. When Chio proposed sealing her senses and forcing all remaining debt into her spirit, she knew she might not survive. That was why she bought my clothes, why she prepared my school books, why she moved the real comb before they came. Could she have saved herself, I asked? If she had kept the merit? She might have lived many more years. Then why give it to me? If she died without transferring it, Chio would take it. If she destroyed it, the village would lose its protection immediately. She gave it to the one person she trusted not to use it against others. I took the real comb from beneath the stone. It was still warm. Can she come back? The dead should not come back. I held the comb tighter. Huai looked at the coffin. But a life built on kindness leaves more than a body. Memory, cause, blessing. Sometimes those things can become the beginning of something new. He placed a pale green stone beside the comb. What is that A part of my root essence? Why give it to me? Luo Shuying saved me once. You have already helped me. I am poor at arithmetic. For the first time since the police arrived, I cried when the green stone touched the comb, light entered the dark surface. A faint sound came from inside. One beat, then another. Several days later, after the medical examiner released her body, I had grandmother cremated. I did not bury her ashes in the village. She had wanted me to see the world, so I placed the small urn inside my luggage. People came to say goodbye. Some apologized. Some could not meet my eyes. Wang Deyu knelt before her memorial tablet for a long time and gave police the names of everyone my father had paid. I did not forgive them immediately, but I did not curse the village. I did not use the comb to destroy them. I gave the evidence to the law. That was what she would have wanted. 2 weeks later, after the first round of statements, the funeral, and the initial child welfare review, I left the village. Huai Qingmu had changed into a dark suit that looked deeply uncomfortable on him. Where are you going with you? As what, your guardian? At the county office, he produced identification under the name Huai Qingmu. His listed occupation was medicinal forest caretaker. The residency stamps went back many years. The clerk barely looked twice. Social services placed me in a boarding school while the case continued, and Huai became my temporary legal guardian. I asked where he had obtained the documents. I saved a registry official in 1987. Is that legal? The papers are real. How long have you been preparing for this? Since before you were born. And you claim you do not involve yourself in human affairs. I never claimed to be good at keeping promises. For the first time in days, I laughed. We followed the winding mountain road. At the final turn, I looked back. Dark clouds had gathered over the village. Huai said grandmother's protection was gone. From then on, the villagers would live by their own effort and choices. Disease would not be softened for them. Bad harvests would not quietly improve. Their mistakes would no longer be carried by someone they had misunderstood. It was not a curse. It was ordinary life. I asked, what are you really, Huai Qingmu? No. What were you before that? He did not answer. Then I remembered. Grandmother always had fresh locust blossoms, even though no locust tree grew near our home. She made cakes, preserves, and rolls from them. I stared at him. You are the old locust tree on the cliff. His expression darkened. Luo Shuying told you I guessed. She harvested my flowers for 12 years. Not once did she leave me a single cake. Did she ever offer once? And she said making me eat flowers from my own body would be cruel. Then she carried all of them home to you. I laughed through my tears. Huai looked away. After a while, he asked, "What will you do now?" "Xinglan study. And after that, investigate Chou's ledger. Other families may still be using fortune transfer rituals." "That will be dangerous," grandmother said. "Blessing cannot be stolen, and fortune cannot be borrowed without repayment. If people are still using other lives to carry their debts, I want to find them." Huai sighed. "This is the last time I help you." Years later, I lost count of how often he said that. I also found one final truth in Chu Yaozong's ledger. The entry for Zhang Guowei was not written in Chu's hand. The older writing had nearly been erased. Under angled light, I could still read the name, Luo Shuying. At first, I thought grandmother had once participated in a transfer ritual. Then I compared the ledger with her journal. I understood. More than 40 years earlier, she had found Zhang Guowei dying beside a road. She saw that he carried a heavy fortune debt. If she left him, he would die. If she saved him, the debt would follow her. She saved him anyway. Her name was not listed as a borrower. It was listed as a guarantor. In the old system, a guarantor could use personal merit to delay another person's consequences, but never erase them. The protected person had to live well and repay the debt through good choices. Zhang Guowei did not. He became greedier, more dishonest, more willing to harm others. The debt grew until even grandmother's merit could no longer contain it. Her death did not begin a curse. It only meant the final guarantor had stopped paying. Everything that reached the Zheng family afterward was not her revenge. It was not my magic. It was debt returning to its owners. I thought that was the final truth of the case, but 3 years later, while I was studying in the city, the comb began beating again. That night, I dreamed of grandmother beneath a locust tree in full bloom. She wore the dark blue floral coat she had bought before New Year and never worn. She did not speak. She was combing the hair of a little girl whose back was turned toward me. When the child looked around, her face was unfamiliar, but her eyes looked like grandmother's. I woke and found a thin crack in the comb. A green shoot had emerged from inside. Huai Qingmu stared at it for an entire day. "Does this mean she is coming back?" I asked. "Possibly." "How long?" 1 year, 10 years, 1 lifetime. "Does a dream prove anything?" "No." But while he answered, he never looked away from the green shoot. I placed the comb against my heart. I can wait. "My name is Zhang Xinglan. I was once the child my family abandoned. I used to believe good fortune was something people were born with, and misfortune was something the powerless had to endure. After grandmother died, I learned that fortune is not a reward without a cost. It is made from choices, debts, gratitude, and the burdens other people quietly carry for us. Some spend their lives stealing fortune, some spend their lives paying for the people they love, and some, like Luo Shuying, never ask the world to return anything at all. But the world remembers. Blessing does not disappear. Neither does debt. They wait for the right person, for the right moment, and then they find their way home.
The official report may close the case, but not every file stays silent. Some roads still wait in the dark. Some names are still missing from the record, and some witnesses never truly leave the places they survived. Zhang Xinglan grew older. The ritual ledger did not remain closed. And somewhere beyond the city, there were still families who believed misfortune could be forced onto someone else. If another file is found, if another voice comes forward, I will open the archive again. Until then, this is Shen Yu, the Raven Archivist, and this file is now closed.